aristocratic, anthropomorphic, anonymous, amnesty, aloof, agrarian. You got me. I needed notes on that one. They're all SAT words, though, and it's been a little while. And those still aren't the right 6 A's, because we're talking about the 6 A's of project-based learning. You're in the middle of a series called the 6 A's of PBL, and today we're talking about applied learning. Welcome to PBL Simplified for Teachers, where we simplify your PBL need-to-knows to simplify the PBL process for your classroom. We don't really learn anything in a bubble. If you really want to learn it, it needs to be applied learning. So we need to do the same thing in the classroom. So in this study that LEAP did, and the Association of Colleges and Universities, they did this study, and let me read these to you, these top 5. Intellectual and practical skills that employers and hiring managers seek in candidates. They want oral communication skills, teamwork skills with diverse groups, written communication, critical thinking, and complex problem solving. You could technically read a book about each one of these, right, and learn and have more knowledge about each of those. But if there's no application to that, it simply doesn't do any good. Those are skills that you have to learn by doing. Great to read about those things, but we need to emphasize and do those things with our learners in our classrooms, and that's where project-based learning becomes that structure that allows those things to happen. A lot of our 6 A's overlap. So in active exploration, you see some of these same ideas. The active exploration builds that curiosity, gives it these opportunities to experience applied learning. We need to give handles to the learning, like things that our kids can grasp onto and get deeper so they can build in that rigor. And one of the questions we often get as teachers are looking to dip their toe into PBL is, well, what about standardized tests? Like, I'm in a tested subject area, what do I do? And we point them to PBLers that would say, I wouldn't be in a tested subject area if I couldn't do PBL, because that's how you get to the deeper learning. That's where you start to have your learners wrestle with these ideas. So then when they get into a testing environment where maybe there's 3, 4, 5 steps, 1, they can persevere, and 2, they know the content deep enough that they can get to that 3rd, 4th, and 5th step to get into that learning. So as educators, as PBLers, we should be looking at the data from our standardized test and from other formative tests that we're taking. We should look at that data. We shouldn't be scared of data in any way. You should look at data, and you should look for areas of growth. You should do that in PBL, and then you should create PBL units and workshops around those areas of growth so that our learners can dive deep into those areas and create areas of strength. That should be part of your systematic process of building your PBL units and your workshops. In fact, I would say PBL gives you a better structure to do some of those things that allow for better achievement on those standardized tests. Because if you don't have the applied learning and you just have random bits of knowledge that are just connected with, a good hook and, maybe a story if you're a great storyteller, but if it's just kind of intro, here's all the information, and a conclusion, here's how you could hypothetically apply this, we're going to be lacking quite a bit. So the applied learning of taking what we've learned and applying it to the real world is immensely key. It's such an important A. So yes, applied learning for standardized tests and rigor and deep learning. There's also a second reason, a quarter twist, if you will, for applied learning, because it starts to build things intrinsically inside of kids. That if they can learn this way, and this applied learning in your classroom, they can also do that in the real world for themselves as they look at the rest of their journey. One of my learners was not very good at school. Skylar failed most of his classes from 3rd grade to 7th grade, and then in 8th grade we gave him project-based learning and a light bulb went off. This idea of, why am I learning these things? He got it. He could learn just about anything, but if there wasn't a why, then he didn't really care. Why should he, frankly? Why am I learning random bits of knowledge that I'm never going to apply? So when we brought him the Punnett square in biology, but we said you need to learn this so that you can help parents who just found out their kids have a genetic disease, he said, well, I'll do that. That's a whole different ballgame. There's a why behind that. And we taught him how to learn. So then he took that learning process and learned something else. He taught himself photography, taught himself how to use a camera, taught himself how to market and utilize Instagram. So now he's an Instagram influencer and he's a freelance photographer because we taught him how to learn and how to apply that learning. So when he went to the library and YouTube and used books and different resources to teach himself photography, he could then apply that learning. You can hear more of Skylar's story in the introduction to my book, Project-Based Learning Stories and Structures. And if you use the link down in the description, you actually get a free course that goes along with it, and I'll walk you through each chapter. If you want to see where Skylar's at now, check out his Instagram account. I'll put it down in the description. He's always out somewhere. I think he's out in California now, but by the time you watch this, who knows? The point is that he found a place inside of himself through applied learning that let him go through the learning process again and again, and he's doing what he wants to do instead of being trapped someplace that he can't get out of. And that's key. That's why we're in the work. That's how we live our why, right? The piece right up here. That's our why. We get in so that our learners have these massive opportunities that they can't see on their own. And these 6 A's, it's applied learning, is where these learners start to build up those muscles of being able to go out and learn new things and experience new opportunities. As you do these things, you're going to find out it will engage your learners, tackle boredom, and transform your classroom.